All right, well, welcome back. You are at the Jacobs Media CES 2021 virtual conference, and we're really excited to have a team from Mercedes-Benz come on and talk about what's going on in their vehicles from a tech innovation standpoint and what it means to broadcast radio. They have an exciting new technology called Hyperscreen, which you'll see in a moment, and it is spectacularly beautiful, and we'll actually dig deep here to try and figure out what might this kind of design mean for radio broadcasters. So let me introduce everybody that you're looking at today. Lars Hanses is from Mercedes on the infotainment side. Christian Zellner here, more on the technical end. George Waltha. George, what's your role? Are you more marketing?
I'm a spokesperson in a communication department and responsible for connectivity.
All right, so you're making sure that these guys don't misspeak or anything, right?
You're right.
Exactly. and of course, Sean. So Lars and Christian, can you talk a little bit about what you do for Mercedes? You don't specifically work together on Hyperscreen, but you each have an important role. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, my name is Lars, and I'm in charge of the entertainment strategy, entertainment functionality, and in former times I was responsible for all broadcast applications.
And Christian?
I'm the leading UX conceptor for the zero layer principles and concept which is placed on the Hyperscreen in the central display. And I'm part of the core concept team.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. We have a little lag, of course.
No worries.
Can you explain for people who might not be completely familiar with UX, what is that? What does that entail?
Actually, bringing out of design and functionality all together for actually the benefits for the customer, figuring out the needs, what they really want to have and what they need, and bringing this up to the front in direct access to the customer in the best way, analyzing our customers and making a great software concept out of it, where they having the right touch points to the right time.
So digital dashboards have been with us now for what, more than a decade, right? In one form or another. And we know from working with Ford and going through the Sync program with them that certainly in the early years, there was a lot of pushback from drivers, certainly confusion, not sure, do I really want to use the system or not? Has that improved? I mean, has a better UX on these different generations of dashboards actually improved the degree to which drivers are more excited about using this technology?
I would say definitely yes. What we did was a huge step. It's also based on new AI technology and possibilities that we can now say it's not one zero layer, it's a zero layer for every specific person, because what he's using and what he's using often, and also based on context, we can now bring that up to the front from our entire MBUX system. This is really a huge system and needs a lot of information architecture, and yeah, sometimes maybe it is a little bit confusing to find the right place where it was located. And now we have solved that problem by creating this area, the zero layer screen, where we can now bring up really the stuff with fits to your needs up to the first layer or zero layer.
So Hyperscreen is brand new. Which vehicle or vehicles will it be available on, and was that part of the strategy behind it, only making it available on one class of Mercedes vehicles? What's the thinking there with hyperscreen availability?
Yeah, it was said that we get this huge 1.4 meter surface into our brand new EQS car. It was clear that we wanna generate on software side also a great benefit to the customer, and even more with this area and this new field of EV still. We have now possibilities to play on that. This was, I think, one of the core decisions that EQS is the leading car now for this concept, where the surface is placed as well. So there is a lot more coming up, of course, but we start now with the EQS because it's also, we tried really to have the best EV experience as well, where we merged range, EV, and navigation, all these disciplines and fields at one place.
The EQS is an all-electric vehicle, correct?
Yes, a brand new one.
Brand new one. Okay, so there's a lot of riding on the EQS. I feel like we keep teasing hyperscreen, so why don't we stop doing that? What did you say, 1.4 meters? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a video, a short video of hyperscreen, and we'll show that, and then we'll come back and talk about the technology and why it's important. Wow. Okay. Well, we definitely have a lot to talk about. Sean, you want to kick this off and take us down the hyperscreen path here, and why this is so important not only to Mercedes, but clearly drivers in general, and ultimately radio operators too.
Yeah, well, and Christian, you hit on it before we saw the video. You talked about this idea of zero layer. So using artificial intelligence or some other means, you're trying to surface to the consumer the products that they're going to want to use and the tools that they're going to want to use. How will that impact some of the things that obviously mean the most to the radio industry? Because it isn't that you kind of go to where the radio is, but your idea is that the radio is brought to them. So if, for example, if I were streaming music over this platform and after some time, does it start to learn that behavior, and does it take me there as a default then? Do those kind of become embedded choices because that's what I had historically been doing? Correct, yeah. Beside this EV journey and the navigation set to the center of this concept, we placed entertainment as a really proper module now, always in direct access below this navigation field. And with tapping on it, it also is featured by AI, where all the sources are combined. So independent of radio, media, online streaming, or satellite radio and so on, it's all bundled in this module, always in direct access, and also the content itself, it's featured then by AI, which offers you then the right things to the right time. Yeah. I think that's really important for this audience, especially to understand that radio is going to be put right next to and right in the mix of all of these other entertainment and if you will, infotainment solutions and services, that it will be right next to it. Whereas the way we think about these interfaces today is maybe I've connected my phone via Bluetooth. So if I want to listen to my phone, then I go to the Bluetooth setting, or if I want to listen to the radio setting, I go to the radio setting, and then I pick my station. But these new interfaces are going to have everything much more tightly integrated, and so it'll be really interesting to see how consumers ultimately respond to that.
Right, it's all in one place now, bundled in this entertainment module. And it was really, we went through a large and huge customer journey mapping process where we really detect the customer needs. And we decided, okay, beside navigation, entertainment, and phone, if you have a connected device, it's a must, and it's always placed on the zero layer screen. Yes, definitely.
How important at this point in the actual car buying or car leasing process is the dashboard and the infotainment piece of these vehicles? I mean, you know, you used to walk into a car dealership and talk about horsepower and brakes and those kinds of technical factors, but to what degree now is the dashboard actually driving sales and interest in these vehicles?
Well, I would say there are a lot of things. At first, we have below this 1.4 meter surface, three displays, and one is for the driver, of course, with for EQ customers specific EQ relevant content, and beside on the other side, the 12.3 inch display for the co-driver, where he has full access for his own MBUX feature set, just for him. And in the center, we have the 77-inch display as the central screen. And I think it's a long-term benefit where, in a nutshell, we can say you have less interaction steps to reach your goal. It's very simple, but it's less distraction. And in a long way, I would say it's kind of an emotional relationship where we're starting going to with our proactive UX. So things now coming up to you if you use it more often, and they disappear if the context is no longer relevant for you. So it's a great benefit when you open the door and the right things waiting for you on the screen, right? This is, I would say, definitely a great benefit on this part.
Yeah, so Fred, it makes a much cleaner interaction for the user, the driver, the rider, the consumer. But ultimately, if they're not going to the radio, for example, then it won't be offered to them as a choice later on. It will essentially learn their behavior, and so there ends up being, from a radio executive standpoint, some lock-in there. So I think that's really important to recognize.
So how does radio stand out? I mean, Lars, you're very much immersed here in the entertainment piece of this. I mean, you're talking to 300 radio broadcasters today. What would you tell them about how to stand out on a system like Hyperscreen, where there is so much there, and as we've just been talking, it learns your behavior. So how do we make sure that part of that behavior set is listening to broadcast radio?
Yeah, so first of all, 70% of our users really listen still to radio and do not use streaming services. But of course, they are a big competitor of broadcast radio, right? But it's good to know that we support also connected radio from Xperi, right? Which brings more user experience to the system. So even for a pure FM station, we now provide cover arts and artist title information for example. But also I can just give the hint, go into the connected world, connect your radio station to the IP services. Yeah. So it's possible to jump into your news stream. If you have a special news stream, IP stream, then we are able to connect to it later on, or to broadcast your podcast archive of that radio station. So yeah, that's all possible. We will enable this with Xperi.
how important is connected radio or hybrid radio? I mean, the Xperi people presented earlier here today, and they're actually sponsoring this event. Thanks again, Joe. But how important is the connected radio, and without getting too technical, how does it work? We start listening to the actual tuner, and then as we drive out of the broadcast coverage area, what happens?
So the radio tuner detects that the reception level goes down, right, and recommends a customer to change to the IP stream of that station. Yeah. So you just need one tap to the UI, and then you are connected to the IP stream of your radio station.
Very cool. But in the meantime, as you said, how a radio station actually looks on the hyperscreen. I mean, is it feeding album art, all of that? Why is it so important, do you think, for broadcast radio to make sure that it looks as good as it sounds?
Yeah, so with the streaming services, you get all this kind of metadata of your current song, right? You can sometimes jump into the lyrics of the song. You see always a cover art, which artist. You can browse through the artist, what albums that the artist launched, and so on. So they have much more functions behind these. And with connected radio, we first start to present always album arts and artist title information on the zero layer directly. You always see first the station logo if the customer selects it. If the vehicle is starting up, you see the station logo, and after a while we display this dynamic information. Yeah.
Interesting. So when we think about you, I think Christian, you mentioned it, and Sean, you did too. We're talking about the passenger here as well. We did some work with a company called Connected Travel a couple of years ago, and a big part of what they were working on is what they called the passenger economy. Can you guys talk a little bit about the role of other people in the car besides the driver when it comes to accessing information or entertainment on a system like Hyperscreen?
Sure. So zero layer is located currently in the center. It's a driver-orientated approach because, of course, when you drive, you're focusing on your navigation, coming from A to B, and for the great benefit, and AI is also involved in other displays in the car. So even the co-driver or rear seat passenger having access to all the MBUX now, fully featured, and it's still also featured via or pushed by AI, but it's a different point of view when you drive and have to focus on the street, or if you have time to enjoy and fully take the entertainment experience. You don't have to focus so much on a street or navigation map. So this was the reason why zero layer firstly started on the center display, but the AI technology behind features all displays.
Maybe I can add something about that. So as you remember, we started with MBUX, which means Mercedes-Benz user experience, in 2018 at the CES. So it's 3 years ago, the very first time. And we started with our A-class with the MBUX. And then we developed it more and more. And last year, we increased it also in our new S-class. And then we add also the front passengers with the Mercedes-Benz user experience. So they can also use Hey Mercedes, and with their own screen, they have their own touch screen, and they can also use the Mercedes-Benz user experience. And now with the MBUX Hyperscreen, we added also to the co-driver side that he have also an own display for himself with touchscreen, and he can also operate all functions of the MBUX. So that's now a full integrated system in the whole car for all passengers now.
I like that phrase, co-driver. Right? I mean, that's really interesting. I mean, it is a different take. Sean, go ahead. You were going to ask something.
Well, you know, I think it's just so interesting. I know, so I have 3 teenage boys, and when I ride around with them, and I've got one of them as the co-driver, they'd like to be the primary driver, but when they're just the co-driver, it isn't uncommon for them. I'll see them go to YouTube, for example, and they'll play music from YouTube because they also want to see the video. So I imagine this type of experience would facilitate that, right? If they were playing and sourcing music from someplace that offered a video experience, then they could enjoy that video experience from that screen. And then I think, you know, from a radio executive standpoint, obviously, I think they need to think about the future of entertainment inside a car is probably much more than just the artist and cover art and some of these other things, that it could be.
Exactly.
Definitely, and it's also very easy to communicate between the screens. So sharing content from the back to the front, from the co-driver to the driver. Everything is connected, but every seat has its personalized profile, which is preferred content, and the whole entire MBUX for himself.
Wow. You know, while I was watching the video, and I'm of course dating myself as seems to be happening a lot lately, but I started thinking about what head units used to look like, right? I mean, you know, it wasn't that many years ago where there were 2 knobs, 6 presets, and a CD player, right? I know. I mean, it seems like light years ago, but it wasn't that long ago. And now there is so much entertainment and information available, just so we know what's actually packed into Hyperscreen. So of course I can pair my phone. So anything on my phone comes through. Are there embedded apps in the system as well?
Sure. Yeah, you have like an example, it's a in-car office application where you can work in your car, get your work into your car for mail, messaging, and that stuff. Beside that, and of course, a lot of more. It's a completely app store in it, so it's totally packed with that. And it's funny what you said, because the benefit also from this new approach, I would say, is if you're using less or you're comfortable with just less, you then get that. So you will not be distracted it's not complicated to reach that little stuff. But if you want to have the full package, you also get it in a very easy way. So that's an important part. It's up to your usage, what Zero Layer or the Hyperscreen offers you on your display.
So it becomes very personal. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto in there as well, of course, right?
Sure.
So a lot of options for the driver and the co-driver, and the co-drivers in the back seat who would also probably like to be driving. Well, this is fascinating. I really appreciate, as I know our attendees do, this overview. I want to just end on this question. So much of what we've seen at CES 2021 this year has been through the COVID lens, and the ways in which the pandemic have perhaps changed the way that we interface with gadgets and technology. And I sat through a session yesterday about future tech in cars, and they talked about how the vehicles are becoming almost sanctuaries for people, right? I mean, you want to get away from everybody in the house who are all crammed in together and telelearning and doing all of that. And so all of a sudden the car becomes this respite, this sanctuary. I mean, is that part of the design idea with Hyperscreen? Was COVID part of the idea here, or were you headed down this road, no pun intended, anyway?
I wouldn't say it was the idea to do that, but I think the car is really a great place where you can relax and be with your you are not limited to your entertainment or what you want to do. This is, I think, the most benefit, and it's now packed with this huge and amazing looking design of this hyperscreen and surface. I think this is still in the COVID pandemic times the best thing, I would say.
Well, Lars, Christian, George, thank you so much. This was just a great tour. We very much appreciate it. Good luck at the rest of CES 2021. Have a great year, and we'll be looking for Hyperscreen in our Mercedes dealerships. Okay, so thank you so much again for being a part of Jacobs Media's CES 2021 tour.